algorithm. And then share the slide again. See a few more people joining. Hi, Lisa, welcome.
Hi.
Is everybody West Coast, or do we have people on the East Coast joining us right now? I know it's late. What is local?
You ask in the chat.
Yeah, I have.
I can type it.
Okay, thanks, Deepti. All right, I think we'll get, started slowly, let more people join us, but make sure we don't delay too much. One more. I think Priyanka's joining us. Okay, so welcome. Today is about learning from SF Climate Week and especially focusing on how climate startups grow. So we are your hosts for tonight. I'm Veronique and this is Deepti. And we're going to give you a bit of background. So the plan was to really go through 5 key takeaways we got from SF Climate Week, but also open up for this audience or all of you who attended or may not have been attending SF Climate Week to share what you've been thinking, what you heard, what made an impression on you. And then because many of us are part of the Xoogler community, we also wanted to give some resources and make sure we're here for each other. So we're really excited. We think the climate community is absolutely awesome and we want to be helpful. So with that, I can give a little intro. I'm Veronique. I'm based in Palo Alto, California. I'm a marketing advisor. I'm also a fractional CMO for a battery company. And I'm really passionate about working with early stage founders. So purpose-driven founders in climate tech mainly, but not exclusively. Work also with amazing female founders. My background is 3-time startup CMO, also worked for Google as the first marketing person for cloud in Southern Europe in 2009. So early days of cloud. And I also have classes on Maven. So if you're interested, we'll talk about it at the end. And I had the pleasure to organize our present, the SF Climate Week, for the Xooglers in climate community. So that was last Tuesday, and I think it was just an amazing experience. I co-organized it with 3 other people. And then in my free time, love baking, hiking, and I'm a big fan of mid-century architecture and design. So that's me, and I'm with Deepti today.
Hi, Veronique. Thank you so much for helping me organize this event today. I wanted to share some of my learnings from SF Climate Week, a little bit about myself. I'm an ex-Googler too, and that's actually where I met Veronique. And we worked on a similar, on the same brand, Google Maps platform many years ago. In terms of what I'm doing here, I founded Thetis, which is a VC company, but also a growth advisory company. We are here to help climate tech companies scale their growth, figure out their go-to-market plans, market entry strategies, and just marketing in general. In terms of my skill set, a lot of experience in marketing operations, demand gen, and product-led growth. I'm also a co-owner of a winery called De Novo Wines, where we practice sustainable winemaking, and it's in Sonoma. Some of the areas that I am passionate about is sustainable seafood, and also thinking about food circularity. I have a lot of composting ideas. If anyone wants to talk composting and growing your own backyard garden, happy to always chat. I have a particular passion for the ocean, and it's my happy place, as you can see in the picture. I love to garden and I love to travel. That's it about me.
Deepti, I think Priyanka is curious, where is your happy place? Where's this beautiful picture?
This is actually in the Bay of Kotor in Montenegro.
Wow, looks amazing. Now we all feel like we're on vacation. So quick recap, SF Climate Week, we just got the news from the organizer, actually. There was 350 events in San Francisco last week. That's insane. And 17,500 registered attendees. So I think it just shows a scale at which climate is eating the world, as one of our speakers was mentioning. So our event was an afternoon on Tuesday last week when we heard from VCs and founders in energy, in agriculture tech, and forestry. So that's some of the insights we're going to share today are coming from this specific event, but not exclusively. So we wanted just to poll our audience today, and if you can put in the chat, how many events did you attend at SF Climate Week, and if you had any favorites? So please don't be shy. And if it was 0, you can also put 0, and then we'll get a pulse. Only got 3, nice. Mark, okay, you're killing it, 10. We have a good range. Okay. Women and Climate Breakfast. Oh, that sounds good. I missed this one. Okay, so we have a big range. So good. 12. Okay, Lisa, I think you're winning. Not that it's a contest or anything. Okay, forget it. 15. Wow, I think we all had a very busy week and probably got very tired. So since so many of you attended, I really hope you'll be able to share also some of your highlights. And I'll get into it. So these are a few logos of the company we heard from, as I mentioned. So you can see the diversity of the panelists for our events and additional ones. And oh, perfect. I'll look at some of the feedback. Thanks, Mark, for sharing your favorite piece around AI. So I think the biggest learning we heard, and both Deepti and I are marketers, so obviously we also have our filters, I would say, but really owning your narrative for climate startups is so critical today, especially coming from old messaging. One of the head of partnership we had, from Rewired America, was saying how the 1970s thinking was so present, where doing something that was good for climate had to be about sacrifice. But now, hopefully, all the narratives are evolving, and we're not asking people to make efforts or to have to reduce their lifestyle, but we know we can combine doing the right thing with something that creates desires and is so much better. So we heard that from people who are founders, how they turn the narrative in a positive way, and also VCs, and why their investments are all on things that are upgrading the way we're living today, not downgrading it. So very important. Sharing some concrete example, we had Renew Home present, and they talked about how they rebranded to some extent what they're doing from demand response, which was you have to give up some of your electricity and power when there's a peak, to virtual power plants. So much more positive way to position in the market what you're doing and really always frame it in an additional benefit. Another interesting example we talked about, that was more from the IDEO event. They talked about another client of them. It was an electric company, and how for many people, like adding electricity have been really challenging, and thinking, is it going to reduce my range? But also, if you turn that into additional benefit, now you have a power supply next to you. You can, in this case, light up your tent. You can power your tools if you're somebody who's working in the field. So again, showing benefits and additional benefits. We also featured at our event a company called Gaia Star, and really interesting. They wanted to tackle the problem of disposable cups worldwide, and we create those little reusable clay-based cups, and they were showing some of them. They are made in San Francisco from Clean Sacramento. So really trying to create alternatives that are desirable, that are beautiful. IDEO, if you know IDEO, it's a design studio. They collaborate with some of the biggest brands. They're really innovative. And they also got me thinking a lot. At their event, they talk about exploring the gamut of emotions. When you talk to an audience, if you're a founder and trying to really get your product or your solution in market, how can you tap into those fundamental emotions from your buyers? And they had those 3 big ones. I thought it was such a smart framework. Tap into lust, greed, and laziness. How do you make your product so desirable that you will adopt the best climate solution? And you can think about the early days at Tesla, starting with a sports car that was super sexy and beautiful. This is tapping into lust. The greed aspect was, how do we create solution either that saves you money or going to make you money, right? If you're an investor, you want greed, which can be perceived as a very negative emotion, but to be a driver because it can really influence positive aspect. And then laziness. You were talking about compost, Deepti. I think many of us know the meal success story, how they're creating their composter, but it's about being lazy. I hate just taking the trash out, but if it's just doing its own thing on its own, my laziness is actually doing something positive for the environment. So tapping into emotions in this way, if you're a founder, or if you think about your messaging today, maybe go back to these three. Learning number 2, show me the money. And I wanted to start with this quote from Abe Yokol, is a managing partner and a co-founder at Congruent Ventures. And he was giving us a lot of overview on the market and VCs. And he said the next 5-year period is going to be gangbuster for climate. We have to decarbonize the entire economy. Companies that make it through the market complexity and market generation are going to have phenomenal outcomes. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit, but he was super bullish and positive. And I think if some of you have friends who are still debating about going to climate, you can always use that quote and get them excited about the potential. We looked at company also been doing really great tapping into both momentum. So decarbonization, Kelvin is one of them. They're helping upgrade old buildings with new technology. And we talked, well, they were on stage with, we mentioned them, they were not on stage, sorry, but how they even pivoted their name to change from Digital Labs, that feels very like device, radiator, to talking about more connected appliances and thinking about solutions that they position so well. It saves money for the building owner. It saves money for low-income family because suddenly your heating is supported by heat pumps. And they're tapping into a lot of incentives from the IRA. You see the Bloomberg cover. So a lot of financial incentives that all gather around their value proposition. Their CEO also was on a podcast recently I got the opportunity to listen to. And his advice was get a salesperson from day one, really find a way to position your solution and bring value both in the simplicity of your hardware, but also for both the user and the stakeholder. One of the investor, Stonely Blue from Third Sphere, mentioned the success of his portfolio company, OneWheel, saying a lot of time the financial market was a little skeptical, but when you build a product adopted by thousands and millions of users like they had with a OneWheel, you prove back to the market that you can have electric mobility that is successful. One thing that also Abe mentioned was right now, seed and A rounds get a lot of funding, which is great. AAB gets pretty hard for companies. And we also discuss a lot about, past the product market fit and maybe science validation, all the next milestones for growth and returns are pretty similar to what you would expect from a SaaS company, a tech company. So how you think and how you build your startup is going to be really critical. How you get to the milestones where you prove return and keep growing and pass the A and B stages that are a little tricky, can be pretty sensitive to companies. So we thought it was also an insightful thing. I'll hand it over to you, Deepti, for learning number 3.
Yeah, so this was interesting, and I think very core to design thinking, and maybe we're all familiar with it, but it was interesting to hear people say, know the user, get your feet wet and dusty. And this quote, as Jeff Gleason put it, he was the chief product officer at Renew Home. He said, deeply understanding customers, what they do, and what they do care about, what they don't care about, and what are they willing to understand and not understand, and how you set expectations in those moments when you're connecting with them is very critical to driving growth in your business. And he also went on to, give an example, and we have a few more examples of speakers at Climate Week who talked about this concept in their own applications. If you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this was, Jeff was actually talking about the early days in Nest when consumers were buying these devices and they're trying to install a thermostat, and then you realize you're in the middle of a DIY project, and so they used to include screwdrivers with their thermostats because it's not just about sticking something on the wall, but it's like a mini construction job, right? And so there was some frustration, obviously, as these users were kind of stumbling on wires, trying to get their home set up for better energy management. And it's the right thing to do. But if in that moment, Jeff or someone from Renew Home goes and tells them are they considering a virtual power plant, that may not be the right moment, right? So it was really what he was saying is about contextualizing the user's journey and like figuring out the right time and place and context to deliver your message so that it lands well and that they're most receptive to it. And then this also kind of impacts just not only the marketing and communications, but the product design and the strategy for introducing your solution for home energy management in this case. The next example is about heat pump adoption. And this was interesting because the general, we assume things about markets and users and, certain states. And it was interesting that, the top 10 states for heat pumps are actually in the Southeast, right? 40% of homes in the Carolinas and Alabama use heat pumps for heating compared to 5% in climate-friendly California, which is very interesting. And the real takeaway here was like, when you are scaling your climate solutions, don't assume, like go several layers deeper, understand the user, the environment they're operating in, and kind of go from there when you are building out solutions for climate. The next example is also an interesting one, and this was coming from the head of product at Bonsai Robotics. They do autonomy, they do and automated systems for difficult environments like farms and forests and things like that. And he was saying that he gave the example of growers in the almond industry who have a unique challenge. They have only 40 seasons to get it right, which you're like, oh, they have 40 seasons, but really, if something doesn't work, they may not get another shot. So you may think they're risk averse, but they're actually very eager for innovation in technology, and they're eager to learn and streamline their processes, cut their costs, and so the learning here was contrary to your expectations and your assumptions, they're actually open. And so think about agriculture and climate tech as another avenue for growth. And so he was just saying that, tailoring their company's offerings to what growers want by deeply understanding their needs and their risk tolerance and their need to, cut costs. How they figured out a way of operating in this particular segment, which is the grower segment. So that was I think an interesting application of knowing the user. Learning number 4 is about AI. I think a lot of us heard about AI in the event, and I'd love to hear other perspectives also on what you heard on the applications. But we heard a resounding yes on AI can be a powerful ally from like Clea, who's the partner and head of science at Lower Carbon Capital. Like she was talking about, it's from discovering new materials and enzymes to like doing, making new applications, right, for existing industries. Like she sees a lot of potential there. Climate AI had an interesting take on like how they're using both public and their own proprietary data to build models for forecasting events in the very short term, both like 0 to 6 months to like decadal projections like 10, 20, 30 years from now, right? So they were talking about applications in food and agriculture, finance and manufacturing. And it was interesting because, some of these things it's about building trust in the long term. You don't know the long term how it's going to shake out, but it was interesting that they were talking about giving confidence to their customers in the short term on model performance, and kind of also talking about decision accuracy for long-term planning. And so, yeah, and so the AI will be used for like making informed decisions. Then there were there were a lot of other use cases that people were saying. This now speakers from Living Carbon, Climate AI, and Bonsai Robotics talked about some of the applications. They just rattled these off, like up top of their head in forestry and carbon capture and agriculture. Like one area is obviously site selection, determining which sites are most in need of intervention. You can use satellite data and, all these models, climate forecasting models to figure out where to select sites for maybe for planting certain species of plants and or for agriculture purposes. It was also, people talked about calculating carbon potential, like, where calculating the potential carbon removal and sequestration by reforesting a site, and getting a better understanding of ROI before you're actually, embarking on a project. Species selection was another one, when you're looking at species for reforestation efforts based on site characteristics and ecology. Risk assessment, especially in the insurance space, as well as just broadly in the reforestation space, like understanding climate risks and looking at data models to kind of reduce potential setbacks in the future. So yeah, I think these are just scratching the surface, honestly, in terms of some of the use cases and applications. And I'd love to, if anybody has other thoughts on the uses of AI that you heard, please type them up in the chat. Veronique, go on.
No, I was just saying, amazing. And I think we heard a lot doing a segue towards talent, the need for data scientists, and so many open roles also in climate. So that was learning number 5 for us. There's a huge need for talent. And everybody on our panels, every time, like, we're looking for people. So I know many people have been affected by layoffs recently, and we think it's an awesome space to get started. So we'll share some resources, but again, very important. And one of the advice was, if you want to move to climate and you're not so sure, go from first principles and evaluate the industry. Do really your homework to understand what happens. There's been different generations. Climate 1.0 has been pretty difficult, but some industries are evolving really quickly. So that's the first advice. Also, another VC advice, I believe, from Congruent Venture was, think about it in like either you have an easy to validate solution, and then you can get from 10 to 20 million max checks from your VCs, or you go for something really big and you tackle a massive problem where you may not have a lot of proof point, but you're going to have the backup to solve a really big problem, but don't get stuck in the middle. And then finally, we mentioned that already, but you have a lot of transferable skills, right? Founders may be scientists coming from academia and then building a very complex scientific solution. And then quickly, when you go beyond product market fit, those companies need the same skills. They need a CFO, they need a COO, they need marketing, they need sales. So don't be shy. And the transition is happening for many of us who are not coming from a scientific background, but can bring a lot of value to these startups. So I think very positive outlook here. And we also saw, I didn't wrote it, but a lot of collaboration, even among the VCs, among the panelists, like it's hold the spirit of collaboration. We're not here to compete. I think we have all a bigger mission. So we all need to be successful for the world to be successful. And I thought it was super refreshing. Moving on. You had also a lot of good information, Deepti.
Yeah. So apart from what Veronique just shared about the need for talent in the space, it's multifold, right? If you want to pave your own path in climate, these are some of the ideas and opportunities that we heard from speakers during the various sessions we attended during Climate Week. So, anything from methane detection, a lot of people mentioned that as a solvable problem with significant impact. We heard a lot about waste to value, like converting waste materials into valuable products, including, like sustainable aviation fuel, hydrogen, biochar, and other forms of carbon storage. A lot of people did also talk about the hard to decarbonize sectors like cement making, steel production, etc., which represent a significant chunk of industrial emissions. So that's something they said are, as an opportunity to decarbonize. Scaling carbon removal solutions, we all know there's a lot of different ways to do it. And I think the jury is still out on what is the winning method. There's many ways to do it. So I think they were talking about like find a way to scale these, right? Like that was an important takeaway for me. Agriculture also featured pretty big, like regenerative agriculture and crop sustainability, thinking about soil health was a big one. Agriculture insurance, so providing payouts for agricultural losses. Like this was an insurance use case, but captured that. And then again, autonomous machinery that can reduce emissions and improve yields and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, we heard a lot of great ideas here, and I again would love to hear from you all. Please add in the chat any other opportunities that you may have heard that were interesting. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, so we just wanted to call out Climate Draft and Climate Base. If any of you are interested in a new career in climate, I'm not there yet. Really cool job boards, so please check them out. And yes, I think that's where we wanted to open up a little bit and see in the chat, or please unmute yourself. Really, we wanted this event to be interactive, and since many of you have done many events, please share with us what you learned, what was memorable.
Are you going or are you not going? That is the question. What are you doing?
Hey, Daisy.
Oh. Oh, hi. Sorry, I'm not on.
Okay.
Really shy. Mark, if you're still around, did you want to share more about your AI session?
I was just about to ask a question actually. For anybody who came to the event, I'd love to hear how and when would you have liked better kind of opportunities for the talking and kind of networking portion. There was some at the beginning, a little bit in the middle, and more at the end. But yeah, I've heard from a couple people that we could have done that more intentionally and made more time for it. And I'm just curious, like when you would have liked that, and if there's anything else we could have done to make it just more amenable for that.
For the people who attended the specific Zoogler event, any suggestion on the networking part?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of thoughts I had. So this was my first really Climate Week attendance, and Zoogler event was the first event that I attended as a Zoogler. I think it was very well done. I think the range of speakers you guys managed to pull together was excellent, and very beautifully put together. I think the thing that I observed is that there is probably like levels of mastery in that room, from more novice level people like myself to more people who have been deeply involved in the space for many years. So just an idea that I had when I was attending the sessions was like, how do we actually think about facilitating more peer-to-peer sharing in probably smaller groups is one thing. Maybe there is like 5 groups. Maybe there's a group that is interested in let's say electricity and electrical grids, and there's a group that's interested in CCUS. So that could have also been something to consider in the future. I know that probably will make the sessions longer and more complex to orchestrate, but it would also lead to deeper engagement and more deeper relationship building.
No, that's a good point. And I think Mark can speak to that, but one of the vision for the Xugler Climate is to keep doing events so we can do more specific ones, deep dive on some industries. It was our first time doing any event as a community. So yeah, if anybody has other suggestions, please, and if you don't want to speak publicly now, please make sure to send them to us.
Yeah. Hi, this is Naveen. This was my first climate tech event. I don't know, this might sound controversial, but I was hoping for a little bit more conflict, a little bit more arguments, a little bit more, discussion from different sides of, people. Everybody wants to do it, but there's must be disagreements on how. And we need to surface those and have robust arguments or debates about it. And I'd love to see more of that, because there might be multiple ways of getting to the answers. And I know we love the community and it's collaborative and all that good stuff, but I'd like to throw a little bit of grit to create some oysters in there,
Ooh. Spiking. I mean, I like that. Yeah, I think that was also interesting for us getting everybody together, these alignments. So yeah, I think it's a great point. Feel free to suggest speakers if you know different opinions and perspectives.
I think having more audience participation will do that. And inviting people who have different points of view will do that. So maybe baking in some time in there would be interesting.
That's
Just a suggestion. I mean, this is my first event, so I don't want to speak out of turn. Maybe you guys have tried it and it's failed spectacularly and you've stayed away from it, and that's fine too.
No, I mean, it's a good idea. I think also like even the topic itself, like if you can introduce like, nature-based versus more industrial-based carbon capture solutions. Let's argue, right? Let's just have a discussion about it.
Yeah, because it's rarely good versus bad. It's usually a debate between two versions of good.
Exactly.
Right? And so you want to engage both and find a way for both the good. It's like loving your kids. You love them both, but the tension happens when they fight. What do, right? It's not good versus bad. It's like, how do you choose between two goods?
That's right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
I saw Ryan raise his hand and then also maybe Priyanka. Ryan, do you want to go first? Okay, I guess not. Anybody else have? Oh, Angela, please go ahead.
Yeah, so building on the point earlier, so first of all, like I don't, and I think it's a decentralized event, but I would have loved to get recordings for the events that I couldn't make. Like there were just events that because of the city traffic that I tried my best and just couldn't get there, and like accidents and all that stuff. So yeah, so even just from the fact that, like I wish I could cite, at least get a recording for what happened. And on the note of more integration, an idea could be that if there could be a async channel for the participants, I don't know logistically how that would, almost like a Slack channel, I guess, but somebody will have to take the lead to host it, right? So like after each day, people can like start their threads and like share learnings, because I think that's really the part that's missing. I don't really know what are people learning at the events I wasn't able to make. So it would have been great, like even on like a day by day basis to have that, because let's say if you're running an event tomorrow and you're like, oh, okay, actually everybody's talking about this particular event today or this particular subject, you can just reference that. And then all of a sudden there's like integration happening. I end up going to quite a few site visits. Like I went to all the carbon removal, just because it's so hard for me to understand what they do without actually meeting the team and like see their demo. So I went to like Charm and Airmine and Living Carbon. They're amazing, but they're all like really far away. So also it's one of these things where you come into that, like half of your day is gone, right? So, but just seeing how the technology worked in action to me was like, I know it's really hard to find that opportunity otherwise. But then on top of that, I know there's also like environmental justice event that I wish I could get to, like community engagement event. And frankly, they're all related, right? You want to apply these technologies out in the field. You need people that are doing the EJ work. So I do think having some kind of dialogue between events that are actually complementary rather than like isolated would be helpful.
Very cool. Yeah, we heard that suggestion live actually. More field trips is one that I heard, and we were all like, yes. So waiting for Deepti to take us to the ocean and
Anytime, anytime.
anytime.
All right. Well, I think.
Can I add a bit? Can you
Yes,
guys hear
please.
me?
Yes,
Hi,
Megan.
I didn't, yeah, Megan, I didn't get the chance to join the event. I'm based in Seattle. But I was just wondering, so my specialization is actually low and middle income countries, health and health tech. And just wondering if I didn't get to actually join, I didn't really see it in the slides. What types of conversations are happening around health and climate, like predictive or responsive capabilities? Or is this really an area that's not, heavily frequented? Just wondering from those that attended what you saw and what you learned.
That's a good question. I didn't attend particular event around health. I don't know, Deepti, what about you?
No, not really, but I will, Megan, if you can add me on LinkedIn. If I come across anything, I will ping it to you.
Amazing.
Yeah, this is
Thank you.
Priyanka. I was gonna say nothing particularly in that, though. There was a documentary, I think it was called like Focus on Water, and it did talk about how some of the climate impacts would be important or pertinent for good health outcomes, and how by not having like certain access to electricity or water in certain communities results in poorer health outcomes. So that was the only like direct health connection. But I also have a healthcare public health background, currently looking to intersect that with health, with climate. And so I'm very interested in this space as well and wish there were more in this space. And I just wanted to say I liked how many topics we covered within the Ziegler event. I felt that you guys had a nice mix of almost everything else I would see during the climate week, and I attended quite a number of events. So I appreciated the diversity of things. I do think we got some attrition of people later in the day. And so, there may have been people I wanted to connect with or talk to, but just given the length, so maybe if there were ways to break that up in multiple events or days, I don't know, that might be something to play with. Other than that, I love that we're doing this debrief, and I wish we had more opportunities like this to just debrief and reconnect with folks that we met at that event, at continued events. And that's kind of what I would ask of the networking piece, is just getting to know what each person's working on. We're all, Zooglers for the most part, or want to support that community. And so I'm sure all of us have skills to bring or offer. Some of us might be working on startups or working with startups. And so I feel like there's a really prime opportunity to do more cross-pollination and collaboration in these spaces, and would love opportunities in spaces just for that.
Well, the beauty of the community is every one of us is empowered to do the next event, and we really hope that's going to be what happens after this debrief. But hopefully you're on Slack, hopefully you're on the WhatsApp channel. If not, just we'll give you the link at the end, because I think there's so much that can happen online, offline, real life. So very excited. Daisy, I know you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to respond to the question about public health. I've been working in climate for about 20 years and spent a couple of years of it at a think tank specifically focused on the health impacts of fossil fuels, called PSE, Healthy Energy. It stands for Physicians, Scientists, and Engineers for Healthy Energy. There is a whole ecosystem of nonprofits, researchers, and think tanks working at the intersection of public health and climate. If you just Google around a little bit, you can definitely find them. Physicians for Social Responsibility is a great nonprofit advocacy organization that has brought the health angle to issues of energy and beyond for, I think, something like 50, 60 years now. So there's a lot of it in that space. I'm not too familiar with whether there's like the intersection of health tech or med tech with climate. I will say that the CDC had been funded to do a lot of work looking at the public health impacts of climate change under Obama, and then that got cut under Trump. And I don't know if it's been restored under Biden, but there is some, you know, federal government at least research that had been done and that hopefully is getting some funding again through the IRA or otherwise in the Biden administration. But just so some background, you guys can use those as nuggets with which to go look around and find the networks you can be part of.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daisy. It's great.
Mark, who's at the origin of the Xooglers in Climate, just put his email. So if anybody wants to organize an event, please reach out to him or any of us, I think, tonight, and we'll be happy to help.
Cool. Do you want to go on to the resources, Veronique? Go ahead.
Oops, I'm moving too fast. So as we said, there's a LinkedIn page you can follow, and we'll keep posting news and events. So you can also do that on LinkedIn. We created a super simple right now list of resources on Notion. And again, would love to add more if you have recommendation, reading, podcasts, job boards, information. So you got the bit.ly right here. I'm doing a training for founders for climate in about 2 weeks. So again, and I'm happy to tell you more about this. If you're interested, it's really marketing for founders. And then we have an awesome growth workshop also from Deepti on the 16th. So it's going to be a busy week. Do you want to say a few words about it, Deepti?
Yeah, it's just a quick 90-minute workshop on the 16th. And, you know, the idea is to help climate businesses think through what does growth mean. There'll be a little bit of sharing from the startups or the businesses that are, you know, looking to grow, and we'll cover some fundamentals of growth, and then we'll have an interactive strategy, like a working session, basically. So I will put that on my LinkedIn, and yes, you can use the QR code to register as well.
So as we say, I think it's just the beginning. SF Climate Week was the first time we organized an event as the Xooler and Climate community, but looking forward to much more. So thank you for joining us today. It was really fun to see all of you. And then, yeah, keep in touch.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pavel. Thanks, Deepti.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.